Hello everybody and welcome back to the Maintenance channel. This is Kuro and today I have another review for you here. This is a review for Life is Strange 2. If you haven't played the first one, don't worry, you can play it without playing the other ones, so it's cool. So as always, my reviews have different parts to them. This one has 4 different parts. That will be plot, gameplay, performance, and fun. So as I broke it down on the other videos, I don't think I need to break it down this one again, but without further ado, let's start. The story of Life is Strange is a story of family. It's a story of 2 brothers that against all adversities, they have to move forward to survive. This is a story about survival, about family, about friendship. There's a lot that I loved about the story, but overall what I like the most is the team and what they're going for. I feel like this is a story that many developers and many people out there are afraid to tell. A story about injustice, a story about growing up in a world that is not always easy to live on. And I feel like overall this story was very well handled, maturely. I know it did get political at times, and a lot of people don't like to get political in video games, but for the story and what they're trying to portray and they were trying to do, I feel like it was appropriate. It was not intrusive in any kind of way, and it wasn't the main theme of the story. The story itself drives forward to many different plot points, and the political part is only but a small part of what the story is really about. Again, the story to me is mostly about all the different characters and how they interact with each other, and that's really the main selling point of this game, is the characters and all of them, especially the 2 main characters, Daniel and Sean. Daniel, for example, is a young kid. He is mischievous, he likes to joke around a lot, and he's very innocent and naive. In many senses, he really looks up to his brother Sean, and he respects him a whole lot. And on the other hand, Sean is a teenager who struggles to find his identity. He has a story about a life. You know, he already has his life, he has his friends, he wants to do his own thing, but he does deal with his family and his dad. He definitely looks up to his dad, who is I believe he sees him as a role model. There are many parts where you see that he does appreciate the things that his dad does for him, and overall the family has a really nice interaction. You do meet one of his friends, Lila, and you can also see their interaction, the chemistry with the 2 of them. And overall the story takes a lot of shocking twists here and there, and there's a lot of stuff that you are very surprised to see the way that they do it. Honestly, the story takes a complete 180 from the first part of the story to now, and all of it just amazes me. It's impressive how well this was handled, and overall I feel like this was a good story that was told. The characters are very likable and the relationship is very believable. I give this part a 10 out of 10. I feel like this was really well handled, and obviously it's really hard to tell how the story will end because this is only episode 1 out of 5, but so far the story has been great, and I can't wait to see more. So the gameplay for Life is Strange 2 is the same as Life is Strange 1. There's 2 components to that. The first one is the most interesting aspect, which is the choice and consequence. Basically, as many other games in that same genre, you have a series of choices that you decide to do. Depending on what you choose to do, there is something that happens. For example, if somebody offers you a cigarette, you can choose to take it or refuse it, and that will change the reaction of the characters around you and maybe what happens later on. The interesting aspect of this is because Sean has a younger brother named Daniel. When Sean does something bad, Daniel might copy that aspect later on, or that behavior later on. I think this is an interesting mechanic that plays out in the game, because this is something that you don't have in other games before this one. Overall, the gameplay in this aspect is very interesting. I loved it in Life is Strange 1, and I liked it here too. This is very cool. There are no other options in here, but the options that they are provided are what I would like to answer, and they're pretty straightforward, so I like that. Second part of the gameplay is basically the walking simulator part, and I've seen a lot of people talk about these and games like this that they do kind get stale at times because you are walking slowly, and I can see where that frustration can come from sometimes. But overall, I like this. I like to explore around, look around. There's a lot of different unlockables and things that you can find and everything. There's a lot of dialogue in this game. And that is basically if you explore around an area and you see something, the characters will then explain something or speak out loud his thoughts about what's going on in this part or whatever. I enjoy this a lot. And as a bonus, sometimes if you explore enough, you can find an area where you can actually sketch out a part or something like that, because the main character is an artist, so he will do some art. In the Life is Strange one, this was photography and this one is art, just sketchbook and everything, and I really like that. This is pretty cool. Overall, the gameplay is entertaining enough to me, but like I said, it can get stale because of the walking. There's a lot of walking involved in this game, and sometimes there's not a lot going on, but overall I like the gameplay. It played pretty good, and the story is good. So the story is really much more entertaining than the gameplay itself. For this area, I'm going to give gameplay a 8 out of 10. The gameplay is good enough, but I believe that maybe a little bit more entertaining bits here and there could work a little bit better. In Life is Strange, there was a lot more characters to talk to, and in this one, because it focuses more on the relationship between Daniel and Sean, sometimes that interaction can get dragged a little for a little bit too long. So as for the performance go, I always divide this in two parts, which will be graphics and sounds. For this first part, be warning, I did play this game in a PC, a GTX 1080, so that might be changed depending on how you're playing it. But overall, the game looks really good. You can clearly tell an improvement on character models and the overall the graphics compared to the first one, which is really good. I'm glad. It looks like they did get a little bit of a bigger budget for this one than the first one. You can clearly tell that they tried to keep that same style of art design and everything, so it looks really good still, while at the same time improving on the lighting engine. It looks really good. All the character models look really good. Whenever they talk to each other, their expressions look really nice, and you can clearly tell that everything feels really believable because everything is just well adjusted. And overall, I didn't really encounter any major bugs or anything like that. I do have to mention, however, that some of the textures look awfully ugly and out of place. The rest of the story looks really good and very colorful, and there are some textures that just don't look right. So yeah, I don't know where that came from or anything. That may just be assets, but yeah, you can clearly tell that some of them look a little bit off. So as far as soundtrack is really the best thing about the performance here. So this is soundtrack that it tells a lot about the story while the story is getting played, and I like that kind of stuff. All the music is really good. All the sounds sound really good. The voice acting is really well done, very believable. Both of the main characters sound really good, and I really like their interaction between each other. Like I said, it sounds believable and it sounds really well done. To me, this part deserves a 9 out of 10. Overall, the game looked really good and it sounded really well. Everything looked really good. The only issue that I had was those textures threw me off a little bit, but that's about it. And of course, last but not least, we have fun. And this, in this case, fun is a little bit different to describe than other games. This game was certainly interesting. There were really funny parts, there were really sad parts, and there were confusing parts and shock parts. This is a game that is full of emotion, and I feel like what the developers went for, which is the emotion, that's what I liked. I feel like they did an amazing job with this. This was a certainly really engaging game in many different aspects. Overall, the game drove me so many times to almost to tears, to anger, to to happiness, and this is just simply a 4-hour game. This is the first episode of 5. So overall, this to have this many feelings in single 4 hours, I feel like this was a very good experience. I want to give fun or overall this experience a 10 out of 10. I feel like this was pretty good and pretty well done. And overall this story needs to be played, needs to be experienced. And this is one of those games that you won't really know what happens until you play the other parts. So it's always going to keep you on the edge, just trying to wait for the next one. As I was playing, I'm like, oh man, I already know what happened next. There was a part in particular where something shocking happened, and I'm like, I need to know what happened. So I was just so looking forward to playing the rest of the game, the rest of the stories I could find out. And overall, this is one of those games, and I feel like this game being episodic benefits greatly, which other games don't. Because in other games, the games get stale after a little bit, kind of like waiting for the next one and everything. But because this game has raised the stakes, has set up a really good story, believable characters, and overall the story and the characters make just such a component for this game that I just want to see more. I'm really excited to see what happens next. I'm very looking forward for the rest of it. I will definitely be playing the rest of this story, and I'll be reviewing this as well. Overall, I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. Alright, so you heard my thoughts on all the different departments that I mentioned earlier. So we're just gonna recap one more time. For plot, I gave it a 9 out of 10. A pretty good story. Definitely different and thinking outside of the box in a lot of different stuff. I certainly don't know how I feel about the political stuff that they tried to add in there, but it's not invasive and it's not the main thing in the story. So for now, we'll let it slide. We'll see how it goes from there. Next section, gameplay, I gave it an 8 out of 10. Definitely had some issues here and there, and some parts do feel a little bit weird, but overall the gameplay was excellent for the style that it's made for, which is the choice and consequence, and it does it pretty well. Definitely it feels that they improved greatly from the previous game, Life is Strange, the first one. Number 3, I said this was going to be performance, and as the game played really well. I personally didn't have any issues with it, but the only thing that I had there was some of the textures look a little bit weird, and I didn't feel like for some reason the rest of it looked great. It's just those little parts, and it's kind of strange. So yeah, the music was great as well, and I gave the performance a 9 out of 10 as well. And as a fun factor, I gave it a 10 out of 10. This game definitely is very engaging, and it just kept me really entertained for stuff. So all round up together, that turns out to a 9 out of 10, and that's how I feel the game as for now is a 9 out of 10. There's definitely a lot of really good elements messed up in this one. There's so many stuff that they did right, and you can clearly see an improvement from the Life is Strange, the first one, to the second one. Definitely you want to revisit the other game if you want to compare this, but to my liking, this game did a lot of things right. From the story, the gameplay, the characters feel really rich. This is definitely a good sequel for now. Definitely is only episode 1, so there's a lot of stuff that you can like, even a little bit of a freebie and a little bit of freedom there, because you have to wait until the end. I'm definitely a little bit concerned about the ending, because Life is Strange, the first one, started really good, and towards the end he just kind of like rushed a little bit forward. So I really hope they didn't do it with this one. But yeah, so those are my thoughts on the Life is Strange 2. Thank you for joining me today. I did do a playthrough of this game, so if you're interested, I have a link right there on the card. And yeah, well, thanks so much for watching today, and I'll see you next time.